Welcome to the Floris podcast. My name is Jari and I'm here with my co-host Floris Huisman. We're both third-year construction engineering students at In Holland University of Applied Sciences, and we're really excited to be hosting today's episode. Over the next few minutes, we'll be diving into a fascinating topic: the differences in building processes between the Netherlands and China. We'll take a closer look at how each country approaches construction, the techniques they use, and the factors that influence the way buildings are designed and constructed in both places. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. First of all, we are going to talk about our thoughts and experiences with both countries using different processes. What are your thoughts and experiences with building processes in the Netherlands, Floris?
Well, Jari, during my half-year scholarship, I have noticed that all the choices had to be taken in consideration by so many people. For example, at the last construction site I was working for, a project with developer Van der Gracht, during the last couple of weeks of my scholarship, they were trying to get a permit for an apartment complex in Zaandam. But because the authorities did not consider the soil ground clean, they had to postpone the construction for nearly 6 months. This concluded a lot of problems like costs, losses, stress and irritation with the company. And Jari, did you experience problems with your scholarship?
Yes, Floris. During my scholarship, I was working for a contractor and we were constructing a new house in the center of Noordwijk. The owner of the villa asked us to design a dormer window because it really fitted in the neighborhood because all the other houses had it as well. But because of the fact that it was a new house which didn't fit into the neighborhood, they stopped giving the permits for a dormer window. This postponed the construction for over 4 months, which caused a big problem for the owner. He had already sold his house and now had to live in a house that wasn't finished yet. I really think that there should be rules in a country, but I think in the Netherlands we sometimes make it too difficult, which concludes in irritation and disagreement between the authorities and users.
Before we started the subject, we both didn't know much about building process in China. We only had a preconception that the quality of building is quite low because of time and cost saving. Because of this, we would like to introduce you an interview we have interviewed. For this interview, we interviewed Mark Dekker. He is the director of INBO in China and lives almost for 12 years in China by now. He is also a global shareholder of INBO BV.
Because of the fact that Mark Dekker is a director at INBO China and has lived over there for 12 years, we got really excited. Because of his minimum experience of 10 years in both countries, he could really help us out with the podcast. The next few minutes he will tell us mainly about the Chinese building processes, and he will try to convince us and the government what we should change in the Netherlands. After the interview we will compare this information with our first thoughts about the processes in China and see if we were right or completely wrong. So the first question to Mark will be, can you tell us the reason why the company chose to expand their working region from the Netherlands all the way to China?
I don't think that's a specific choice not to expand to anywhere else. I think the reason why we are here is because so it's not. I think not specifically chosen not to do other countries. I think if it's up to me, I would be happy to develop also other countries.
Yes.
Just that time it just organically happened like this.
In the recording, you heard that the first question was not quite finished yet. It was because of a technical problem. But the reason why they are in China is that the opportunities in infrastructure developments are quite enormous over there. On to the next question. What are the biggest differences about working in China and the Netherlands, Mark? And can you also tell us something more about the safety differences during the building processes in both countries?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I mean, first of all, I think things go faster here, much faster. That's one thing. Even now, when the economy is a bit more on a normal speed, it's still everything goes much faster than Netherlands. So where in Netherlands we take 2 or 3 years to get a project built or designed, even we take 1 year, 1.5 years to get it designed and built. So it's extremely fast. Second is also that there's difference in scale. So Netherlands is a relatively small country. And the projects are also relatively small. So where for our company, maybe a project of 10,000 square meters is already quite a nice project. For us, that's really the minimum.
Yes.
We have projects of 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 square meters. So that's we always say what is architecture in China is urban planning in the Netherlands. So it's really a jump of scale. And what is regional planning in the Netherlands is urban planning in China. So it's really the jump of the scale.
Okay.
That's another thing. And in terms of safety, I think it's very difficult to compare. I think because the two countries have a very different are in different stage of development. So I think it's not fair to compare all the things, Netherlands and China. When I came here 12 years ago, I think when I went to the first time to the construction site, it felt like I was in a third world country. I mean, there was no protection. The floors were open. There were no fences. Construction materials were on the floor. People were walking on the construction materials. So it was quite primitive. But when I look at it now, what happened in 12 years' time, it's incredible how fast how fast China is developing. Basically, what we develop in Netherlands maybe in 50 years, China does in 10. So it's incredible how fast this goes. That's why I think it's very difficult and not fair to compare.
There's quite some differences, Mark. What is your opinion about it, Jari? And which country feels better to you?
I agree that it is a lot of differences, and I think it traces back to a couple of facts. China is more than 200 times the size of the Netherlands, but we live in a way more densely populated country. Therefore, we need way more buildings per square kilometers than they do. Another reason could be the climate, which also impacts the soil. As Floris said, his company had to wait for 6 months to receive a permit because of a contaminated soil. In China, the soil is way different, and to be honest, I think they don't really care if it isn't, but that could be a misconception. I think the rules in the Netherlands about safety are way better than in China, but the rules about receiving permits and the working ethic is way better over there. That's why I think a company like Imbo is a really good innovation which combines the best of both worlds.
Thank you for your opinion, Jari. Let's get on to the next question for Mark. Can you tell us something more about the different special equipment they use in China, which we don't use over here, and the other way around?
In the construction, for sure, it's pretty similar, I think. Besides that things go faster here, I see in terms of like renewable energy that they do a lot of investment here to increase the renewable energy. I was thinking about something else which I forgot already. No, I forgot. I had something in mind that might be different between countries, but forgot already. Yeah. No, I think it's quite similar. I think not much different
differences.
Oh yeah, I know. I remember what I want to say. I think the only thing you can still see, because the labor here is still relatively cheap.
Mm-hmm.
The developments such as prefabrication is still not developed. So in Netherlands, because the labor is expensive, you will even have difficulty to find the workers. Yeah. And if you find workers, they want to work in a clean and dry and nice environment. So they do. That's the reason why we do a lot of prefabrication already in the factory, where people can work dry and clean. And I think here in China that is not that there is some prefabrication, but definitely not on the level and the scale we have in Netherlands. And the technology here is not that developed yet. So there's still a lot of on-site casting and on-site manufacture, or let's say production and cutting, and a lot of manual work, let's say. So that's maybe a difference you could see between.
You think that in the future it can be also there?
I think it's a consequence of a country that is developing, that the labor price will go up eventually, and when the labor price goes up, and the speed stays like this, that it's inevitably that also in China there will be more and more prefabricated products. I think also in projects the government also say there has a certain percentage of the construction has to be prefabricated.
Okay.
So they are already trying to stimulate and develop this part.
Thank you for your answer, Mark. What I can tell from your answer is that China will develop prefab in the upcoming few years. And Jari, can you tell the listeners what country Mark prefers working for and what your opinion about it is?
When we asked Mark in which country he prefers to work, he told us that he prefers China. That was because of the opportunity to develop China into an infrastructure leading country. I had never thought about working in a different country myself, to be honest, but I can really understand Mark because of the over-organization in the Netherlands. Here we all think we are the best in everything and it's all owned by a lot of big companies with no place for development, whereas in China there is a big need for development because of the speed of the country's growth.
Then a final question for Mark. Is there anything you would like us and the listeners to take away from this interview?
Well, the easiest would say if you have a project, you bring it to us. But I think for the company, I think we are doing our thing, so that's fine. I think what I would say is what I would prefer for the listeners to think about is that in the West, a lot of the communication and the media are saying things about China which are not always true. So I think it's important to realize that the news that you get is also propaganda. So I would advise the listeners to be critical of what they hear in the Dutch media. And I would really welcome them to come to China, see with your own eyes how it is here. And you will see that things are very different from what you hear in the media. So I think that's the best thing I can say to your listeners. Come over here and see how big and beautiful and energetic it is over here.
This was our weekly podcast. First of all, we would like to thank Mark Dekker for taking the time to give this interview and informing us about the building processes used in China. Then we would like to thank the listeners for checking out our podcast. We hope that you guys enjoyed and learned something about building processes in the Netherlands and China. Feel free to follow us on our Instagram page, Floris_podcast, and leave a comment below our post about which country you would like to be informed about. We will see you next time. Bye!
Bye bye!